Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to my channel. I'll call it now video. So another interesting insight I'm about to uncover, and I believe is going to people are going to find a sort of mindset shift in what I'm about to say. So looking at the dynamics of life in general, in every relationship that exists. So let's say it's a business relationship, romantic relationship, family relationships. What I find fascinating is the level of disconnect that exists in terms of how one that belongs in the upper echelon or upper, you know, area in terms of how affluent they are, or in terms of privilege, or in terms of position they've managed to attain, to the level of like treatment and dissonance that arise between that person and the person who appears to be on the lower side. So oftentimes when I see sort of mistreatment between two people, for example, that exist in this kind of relationship, and how these two individuals, when it comes to treatment between the upper, person in the upper, echelon or upper side, or the person having much more, upper influence, treats the person that is sort of lower in that relationship. I find really fascinating because sometimes I tend to look at it that why is it that the one at the upper echelon or in the upper side treats the one at the lower echelon or in the lower side in a way that seems rather degrading, diminishing in some way. So oftentimes I've often blamed those at the upper side, saying, "Oh, is it because you've worked your way up to a certain level and you've managed to become an employer of labor of this other person at this lower level? Does that now give you the right to treat this person this way?" So the level of treatment can be ranging from various aspects. So it can be, say, how communication, that what's the level of communication that exists between these two people, what's the level of mutual respect that exists. So oftentimes it tends to be degrading. So I've oftentimes blamed these people that belongs at the upper side. But what I've found out in recent times is that in as much as we want to blame, or we want to apportion some number, like a number of blame to this person in the upper echelon, even those at the lower level too have some sort of responsibility to themselves as a person. So now I'm speaking to those person, like those set of people who life happens to throw at that lower side. That is, they are still at the, in terms of lower end when it comes to these relationships, of which that I'm speaking to you, I happen to be one. But I've seen that in previous relationships that have existed in, say, business relationships, say employee employers relationship, of which I happen to be at the lower end. So say employee, or the person that they are recruiting, or the person that is coming to work for this next person. So sort of that lower cadre. So I found that the way I have been able to like carry myself in this sort of relationship, this sort of mistreatment, misdemeanor, derogatory statements, sort of pushback statements, sort of ill feeling that is supposed to exist, I find it not existing in my approach. So I've seen that even those that are like belonging to that lower level, that lower cadre, the there's a particular way they project themselves that makes it easy for these people belonging to that higher level of affair when it comes to this sort of relationships. So make it easier for them to like treat them the way they feel they can. So people at the lower level now, this is sort of my unsolicited advice in some way on how to carry yourself in a way that even these people that you appear to be in this sort of relationship with, they would treat you in a much more respectable way, They would view you as a person of value rather than a person that is sort of, or that sort of got the opportunity to belong to a certain level or a certain position by chance. Please excuse me. So, and sort of start to treat this person, like start to treat you in a way that you become someone of value, you become someone of influence, you become a contributor rather than somebody that just majorly absorbs. So one thing I would like to point out is it is important that as an individual you see every relationship, no matter the position you are, you see every relationship that you are in as one whereby you are mutually, independent. So it is necessary for the two of you to exist, but you're mutually dependent of one another. So you don't see yourself depending on your employee because you're working for him. You don't see yourself depending on your boss or somebody that appears to be, at a higher level than you are because you're working for them. Rather, you see it as a sort of mutually interdependent approach whereby you two exist to contribute to each other's lives, in that there's sort of like a value that you bring into that relationship that makes the other person's lives better, and there's sort of a value that the other party to brings into the relationships that sort of makes your life better. When you start viewing this thing as this sort of approach, it enables you concentrate more on the value that you bring rather than allowing yourself or projecting yourself in a way that seems like diminishing in the relationship. That's one thing I've learned. Sort of see every relationship that exists in that I bring value to this. There's this particular sort of value that I bring, and I would intend to concentrate on that value, develop myself to an extent that I'm a great contributor at what I do. I'm the best at what I do. I put in effort, I put in work to become the better version of myself at what I do. That's number one. Number two is when it comes to this sort of relationship, another thing that I figured that we should start to strive to do is to become somebody that, irrespective of every situation we find ourselves or every relationship we find ourselves, there's this sort of attributes, value systems that we project that even that person that belongs to the upper echelon, like I've said earlier, won't even be that sort of thinking won't cross his mind to treat you in that derogatory way or in that humiliation way. So, for example, if you're somebody that's in that sort of relationship, no matter what it is now, you hold your end, like your own part, you hold it in high esteem. You're very punctual. You deliver on time. You do your work diligently. You make sure that you always contribute to the betterment of that sort of relationship you find yourself. You see that person that belongs to the upper echelon, like I've said earlier, wouldn't want to even project that thinking to treating you that sort of derogatory way. So when you hold your own end of value delivery very well, you know who you are, you know what you bring to the table, it sort of elevate your stance in that relationship dynamics. And number three, which I want to share, is when it comes to this sort of relationship and how this relationship kind of coexist, it is important also that we seek to always see these relationships as an ongoing part of. So it's important that, irrespective of who we are as a person, irrespective of what we are doing as a person, as an individual, there's always an end goal in mind. And for whatever position we are in, or for whatever phase we exist in whatever relationship we exist in, we see it as an ongoing process. That is a means to an end goal that we have, no matter what level we have attained. Even if you've gotten PhD, MSc, BSc, PDG, LNTG, no matter the educational qualification, no matter the money, no matter the level, whether low, high, in this sort of relationships, to avoid this sort of derogatory system, you see every point you're existing as sort of an ongoing, ongoing sort of process towards that end goal you have in mind. So when you view these situations or this relationship as that, it sort of moves your mind and puts you in a position whereby you are no longer at the level of that relationship, like you've elevated beyond, and some things tends to change in character, in communication, in the way you present yourself. It tends to depicts confidence in your ability, in where you are looking yourself to get into, your delivery, how you see yourself, how you relate with people. Those things tends to change because you are not on that level again. You've elevated beyond that. So it's important that we have a goal in mind, a drive, something that we are looking to achieve. And it doesn't have to be something grand and over the top. But if it's that, also is fine. But even if it's important enough that it impact at least just one life, change at least just one, human being's life, it's something. So if we have that also, it sort of elevates us to become a better person, to become somebody of value, to become somebody of greater influence. So this, guys, is what I thought to share to sort of elevate our minds, sort of make us to become somebody of value, somebody of immense contribution to the society. Until the next one, bye bye, guys.